our meeting, and I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully I can get the deck up on the screen. Where's the deck? Why don't we start the deck and then we can share it. And of course, I think everybody needs to have, all right, so how do I get back to, I'm only running one screen tonight, so I've got a little, and there it is. All right, can you see the deck?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is it the deck with the notes, or is it the actual when you're editing?
Just the presentation.
Interesting, because I have a different view. So
I have the slide and I have click to add notes at the bottom.
do you? Okay.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Oh.
So
I have
Well,
the
if you want-
PowerPoint.
I see the PowerPoint viewer, and yeah, click to add notes at the bottom.
There we
Slides on the
go.
left. There we go.
all right, there. Okay.
There it is.
Good.
All right, so I'm that job guy. I'm not that presentation guy. Let's start there. I think everybody has to have a title page. I think one of the things that I don't talk about a lot, but it's something that I do a ton of, is I do a lot of content and copywriting. And it's not just resumes, it's blogs, it's emails and all that sort of thing. So if you want some help with any sort of messaging, I can help with that. So let's get into building and marketing your personal brand. First off, I went to Wikipedia because Wikipedia is the best thing ever, as Michael Scott says. I just thought that this was a good description of what personal branding is. I love the fact that they start with the two words that I think are the most important. It's a conscious and intentional effort. And it's something that is really important. You have to be aware of your brand on everything that you do, and you have to be very intentional with it. And so you want to create and influence public perception. So these are things that help you with your what your brand will do for you. It takes time to build your brand. I hate reading PowerPoint screens, so I'm not going to. But there's 4 things that I felt Wikipedia got right on what a brand does. Over the past 12 or 15 years, I definitely have become a go-to expert. People come to me all the time for help with jobs. From a differentiation standpoint, there's only a handful of technical recruiters and agencies in Kansas City that'll do this sort of thing. I'm one of them. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of technical recruiters and agencies. And so this is one of the points of differentiation that I use when people ask me why should I work with Adam Scabbard? You definitely build a network, and it can certainly help you move up in the world. Let's start with what a personal brand is not. And this was kind of a revelation to me. It's not a persona. By definition, a persona is not real. It's something that you're making up. You have to be authentic in your personal brand. There's a quote that I ran across today that you can read there. You got to find something that's you, and you got to make that your brand. And so I took what's me. I like to help people. I like to teach, and I'm in the job business. So that job guy came out of that. I love that you can exaggerate a little bit, and it's not exaggerating is not being inauthentic, and it certainly is not being dishonest. It's just taking what you are and really making it yours and owning it. So it's a great quote, I thought, about in terms of building your brand. So I don't want to be presenting. I want to discuss. So let's talk about, because I thought the exaggeration thing was interesting. Does anybody want to take a shot at what is the special thing about you, and what's a way you can legitimately exaggerate it? I'm going to throw it to the floor. I'm going on mute, and we're going to have awkward silence, or we're going to have somebody speak up. So I'm going to go turn on my fan while we're at it. Go.
I'm a teacher of teachers. I've taught online for Zoom since 2010. And my dissertation was training teachers, online teachers, so that they can become better communicators in the online venue. So where you're the job guy and not the presenter guy, I am the presenter guy.
Maybe I should have got a hold of you before I started this tonight, because I've never done a presentation on Zoom other than helping out with the one we did a few months ago. And that's great. I mean, I'm a teacher of teachers. I love that. We'll get into this in a second, but that's something that people will remember. And when you said that to me the other day, I totally remembered that. So, Rob, you want to give it a shot?
Sure. There's two things that I consider myself. One is a servant leader, in the sense that I work in an organization well as far as taking care of people managing, people care, and I know how to do that really well. I'm really good at building a team and preventing attrition and taking people in their careers to the next level. And that's one of the things. The other part of it is that I'm big on innovation. Not only the innovation, the ideas that I come up with, but I'm also pretty good at helping people take their ideas and flesh them out into something that's a viable product.
Okay.
Did I do okay?
Yeah, I think. And so how do you take that? How do you take that innovation and really build on it and almost again, exaggerate on that? What's the big innovation thing that you can talk about?
Well, it's interesting because I don't have I've failed to innovate in an interview process and how to, or in a branding process, what that looks like. I mean, when I can talk to it, I can give examples of things that I've done, but I'm all ears in figuring out a good way to actually brand that. I mean,
so I think that's a question that you should ask yourself, and these are questions that we should all ask ourselves. Jonathan, you and I will talk offline, but there's something special about you that I think that really can be exaggerated and can be part of your brand, and I think that's an awesome opportunity. So let's move on. You have to get a statement, and it's a sentence or two at the most. And so I'm that job guy, and I say I'm that job guy. Most people look for work maybe a dozen times their entire career. I help people look for jobs every single day of my life. That is my brand statement. And so it's finding out who my audience is. It's people looking for work, and how I do it uniquely. There's really nobody that I know that does this for a living, and then also does what I do and you said servant leadership, on the servant leadership side. You can get career coaches, but you can't find somebody who earns their living in the technical services or even recruiting business in general that will go as far as I will go in terms of helping you find a job. So find a brand statement that's memorable. Find one that will draw people in, and find one that fixes that meets a challenge and helps somebody get moving forward. So personal brand statement, that's something that you want to work on. Now, how about this? What do you want people to remember about you? Ken, I'm going to call on people now, people that I know.
Oh.
Ken, what do you want people to remember on you?
That I'm friendly, I'm easy to get along with, that I have a lot of connections. So I guess the connections guy.
There you go.
Yeah, and considering that's what I've been doing with our scout troop, I'm the one who goes out there and speaks with all the packs in the area to get them introduced to our troop. So when the new scouts cross over, it seems like all the parents, they go to me to ask me questions about things. I'm the one who organizes the campouts. So I'm the guy with the information. And if we're at any meeting or any event, people come to me and they ask me for information on it. And I'm not always a person for them to talk to. We had summer camp this summer. I was not the summer camp scoutmaster, and I had to keep telling people, well, actually, you should talk to Richard on this because he's the person who's in charge of it. Go talk to him, and well, I don't know Richard. Well, let me introduce you to him real quick. So
now, when you were at Assurant and AMC, I'm guessing because you translate that into your work as well, and I'm assuming that you made a lot of connections when you were working at AMC, and that's something that you can talk about. Yeah.
I don't think I've made as many at AMC as I did when I was at, say, SAIC or Assurant.
Okay.
And it's because the nature of what I work on, I end up speaking with only a few different teams. So there are even groups in IT that I don't know the people that are in those groups at all. But like when I was working on the inventory management system, I spoke with everybody in purchasing, I spoke with everybody in accounting, and I spoke with everybody in tax. So I knew people in all those different departments and was working with them on a daily basis. And, you know, I was a go-to guy and the resource on all that stuff. Now that I've been working on with BizTalk, I'm talking to the DBAs, I am talking to the guys who handle the point of sale system, and I'm talking to our operations people. But
Yeah, you're more in the tax.
yeah,
And it's interesting that I mean, you are an integration guy. You know, you work with information and you work with integration, and that translates outside of IT in many, many ways.
mhm. Yeah, so, but rarely do I end up speaking with the business because I have to talk to these teams about the systems and not always to the business about what their business needs are, because they're talking with the guys who are doing their API development or their user interface or whatever, and then those guys speak to us about, well, we need to talk with this other system over here. So
But
I'm talking.
that's AMC, correct?
Yeah, that's AMC.
Yeah. So
That's how it works.
yeah, and so you take that, and I think it is really critical. Anybody and I know there's several of us in the technology space on this call. Anybody that's in the technology space knows that at this point, you can have a tremendously talented, gifted code slinger. If they don't understand what their code, what problem their code is solving, they do not write good code. And so it's critical that people that understand how to program the computers to do the things that they do understand the why. And I know that's you, Ken, for sure.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So here's kind of the meat of what we're going to talk about. And so I'm going to pull my notes up here. I hope they came over.
Hey, Dave, can I ask
No,
you a
it's
question?
perfect.
Yeah, go ahead.
How long of a statement is really feasible? I mean, you've got some really short, catchy ones. For those of us with kind of long backgrounds, it's hard to get short.
Right.
Dave, can I answer this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've always heard of it as an elevator speech.
Right.
I've done Tom Hopkins training, and he was in real estate, and the way he'd answer people when they ask him the question is, well, I help people, you know, become involved in the joy of home ownership. That's how he'd describe it. It got their attention. He was in real estate, and it made them ask a question, because what does he mean by he helps people get involved in the joy of home ownership? And it'd start up a conversation. So that's what he wanted to be known for. Well, Dave's is that jobs guy. Well, what on earth does that mean? It makes you ask a question. And well, so Dave, what is that? Do you help people with career counseling? Are you a recruiter? I mean, what is it you do, Dave? And so the elevator speech, it should be maybe a sentence or two that's designed to grab somebody's attention, get them to ask a question, and start a conversation. That's been my experience with it. Does that make sense, Carol?
That's spot on, Ken. That's spot on. You want something that's gonna get their attention and get them to ask you questions that then you can unpack the rest of it, because you do a ton. So it's figuring out what's the one or two key things that will get the person that is listening to ask questions that will unpack the other stuff. Right. And that kind of brings us to, you know, number one here is focus. The more narrow and focused your brand is, the easier it's going to be for people to remember you after they get it out of that elevator. So, you know, I'm that job guy. Hey, that job guy. That's weird, but okay, yeah, I get it, right? And so that's one of the reasons that you want a real focused brand. At least in terms of a brand statement. You want something that people are going to be able to pretty quickly memorize in our world of ADD. And I'm really bad with that too, by the way. I'm like, I can get distracted easily. I mentioned authenticity on an earlier slide. authenticity. You have to be genuine. It's just going to make your brand a lot easier to manage. You are who you are. You can't really deviate from who you are to a great degree, and your brand has to reflect you. So don't try to. I'm terrible with math, and so I'm not somebody that you want to sit down and have calculate profit and loss and things like that. I do not have a logic brain to a large degree, and so for me to try to convince someone otherwise, it would come off as very disingenuous. So you really do have to, your brand has to reflect who you are. People love stories. I love telling stories. Rob, you love telling stories. Paul, you're the best storyteller I know. You're a teacher of teachers. And so you want to find that story. You can't tell people what your brand is. They are gonna base their determination on what your brand is based on what stories you tell and how you present yourself. You know, when I say Chick-fil-A or Five Guys, these are both, you know, very similar casual dining restaurants, and their reputation and brand is very, very different from a Wendy's or a McDonald's or a Burger King. And part of that is because they are focused, they are genuine, and they do have a story. You need to be consistent, and this is similar to having the focus. You have to just go in, and it's much easier to work with your brand when it is a regular, consistent thing. And Carol, you were mentioning that you know, I do a lot of things, and that's absolutely true. And it's a matter of compartmentalizing those things into a consistent track when you are having these conversations, right?
Right.
5. And there's a link to this article I pulled this from because this was a really good article. It was very in depth, and I liked what it had to say. This was an important one, and it dawned on me. I'm like, that's true. You got to be ready to fail at this. Because you know, think of all of the things that Steve Jobs failed at before he started Apple, and you know, failure is part of success. You have to have trial and error in order to fix what isn't working, and discard what the market isn't responding to. So you're not going to have instant perfection building a brand, and it does take a little bit of time to build up. You can start branding now, but it's going to take a while for it to really grow and mature. It's like the old joke, when's the best time to plant a tree? That's 20 years ago. What's the second best time? Right now. So be ready to fail and do some trial and error. These are some things that I think are really critical. Is you have to be able to positively impact others. Rob, you said servant leader earlier. That is absolutely how people are attracted to others. Is they're willing to give something away. I had a happy hour with a guy today that Dan, I think Dan's on the call. Dan had referred him to me, and he asked me point blank. He says, "What do you get out of this?" I said, "Well, I get to build my brand a little bit. I get to build my business one relationship at a time, and I have no expectations out of this other than I appreciate the time, and I was happy to share what I had to offer him, and I was glad that he was able to articulate to me what I would need to know if I do run across an opportunity for him." So you want to always look for that winning combination where you're giving something to somebody and don't really expect anything in return. Follow the leaders. You can, if you, I love Seth Godin. I think he's a marketing and branding genius. But there's a lot of really good leaders out there. But look at the influencers around you. Look at not just your peers and colleagues, but just the people in the businesses that you respect. I have a lot of respect for the owner of our company's an amazing person. I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and just watching how she operates has changed how I operate. And so she's very empathetic, and she's very into not just where I'm trying to go, it's where I'm trying to take us all. And for those of you that know Denise, you know what I'm talking about. Live your brand. Well, you just have to, everywhere you go, this thing's going to follow you. And if you do a real good job with it, people will remember you, and it's just going to be a part of who you are. We'll talk about how to build the brand here in a second, but you just need to live it. You just need to embrace who you are. Make sure that you're being true to yourself, because that means you're being true to your brand. Let others tell your story, and I've got some good people on this call that do that for me, and I appreciate that. And that's just something that I think is that comes naturally as a progression of building a good brand. And then just, leave a legacy. What are the actions and results? What do you want to be known for? When I walked away from an employer that I worked for 17 years, what were some of the things that I wanted to leave them? And what were, and I was very glad that I was able to bring some people in before I left that helped them keep their business moving forward. So think about legacy, because those are important things. All right. Any questions? Comments? Okay. So now we're kind of down to the brand awareness. Building brand awareness is so easy to do, but it going back to being consistent. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity to start to build your brand, because once you understand your brand, you can provide and provide that, serving others, providing information, and there's so many different ways to do it. LinkedIn is a great tool. You can author articles, you can share things. You should constantly be on LinkedIn and sending people messages that you're connected to, that you think that they will be interested in. Rob, you talked a few weeks ago about your follow-up plan, right? That's part of your brand. That's part of your branding. Marketing is an important part of branding. And Rob had I remember when you sent that to me the first round, and then the second round it came in and it was about 3 times as long. And so you have to have a constant plan of attack. We at Adams Gabbert have been asking our consultants and former consultants to write 5-star reviews for us on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Google. I think those are the 3. Anyway, Indeed, Glassdoor, and Google. If you feel we're worth a 5-star review, please provide us with one. And so that's just part of our branding effort. And there's a way to do that on LinkedIn by asking for recommendations. And I always, when I'm looking at candidates on LinkedIn, I'm always going down to see if there's recommendations, because that goes back to one of the ways you can build your brand is what are other people saying about you. Blogging, and I think also video blogging, if you're comfortable doing that, is a great way to build your brand. Who was I? Oh, goodness. It's a family that's a musical family, and they did a really good parody of Hamilton, and it was 3 minutes long, and it was fantastic. And it was obviously done with professional equipment, and it took a lot of time to put together. And you don't necessarily need to do that, but you also, video editing is so easy. You should find somebody that is in that space and say, hey, I'm thinking about putting out a video log series on something. and having that available. It's one of the reasons I'm recording this tonight, because I want to have something that I can put out into cyberspace that is helpful to people. But blogging and video logging, being a subject matter expert and posting in online forums that are related to your business, posting on LinkedIn, those types of things, those are all great ways to build brand awareness. Special interest groups. Nobody's getting together right now, and it doesn't sound like people are going to be getting together anytime soon. But special interest groups offer to go in and present on something, because usually, like right now, we've got a dozen or so people on this call. Maybe you can get 20 or 30 people, and you get to go in and be the expert, and that builds your brand awareness. And just in general networking and going out and meeting new people and telling them about yourself and telling them about what you can do for them. I wrote cookies because I've always said cookies are awesome. I had a cookie and a half. My wife ate half a cookie, and I love it when she eats half a cookie, because then I can have a cookie and a half and I don't eat 2 cookies. So cookies are an interesting thing because you can send them anywhere and nobody sends cookies. And it's something that will absolutely get someone's attention. I promise you. So you can home bake them, you can order them online. I love sending cookies to prospective clients. But through all of this brand awareness stuff, the big thing that you want to keep in mind is you're really there to serve other people. You're not serving your brand. You are there to give somebody something of value, like my cat. Finally, I'm sorry, I missed that. Go ahead again.
If you are sending cookies, what type of note do you include to the person?
Just depends on what I'm trying to do. It really does. I sometimes if I want somebody to return my call or emails, I will literally say, I've sent you several email messages. I thought cookies might get your attention.
Okay.
You also may
That's
want to
a good
keep in mind, if you're going to send a cookie, how are they going to react to something that's been homemade compared to something that's been ordered in the wake of these
True. No,
virus times?
absolutely. Nope, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to finish this presentation with this phrase, because if you go and look at LinkedIn, and if you go and look at any of the social media, text only posts, you go zooming right by them. If you can put images, especially images, if you're personal branding, images of you doing something related to your brand is very, very helpful. But images capture an emotion that you can't get with text. And so when you're working through your posts and doing things with blogging, it's why I like video blogging, because moving pictures are even better than pictures, because it's a picture and words. So when you are branding, use pictures. It's really, really important. And that's my presentation. So I'm just going to throw it out there and see if there's any questions that people have.
I have a question, Dave. Once you've put this package together, you've packaged yourself, how do you get your package at the top of all packages?
Number one, I don't think your brand isn't a package. That's a marketing. The marketing is part of the branding, right? The brand itself is not it's not a set thing. It's something that you're constantly working on. But if you have your brand and are using it as a tool to get a marketing campaign, that's a different it's related, but it's a different strategy. And so how long? I mean, you just you go back to the trial and error, and you keep working until something works.
I have a question, Dave.
Go.
Okay, so my branding is I owned a construction company for 8 years, And I think what makes me a little bit different is, there's people who are in project management, facility management, but they've not done the business side. I know the full 360 of owning a business and the pitfalls that people can run into, and I can help people avoid some of those pitfalls. I went and I worked for a company for 6 months. They asked me to come in and help them with their policies and procedures and help manage some of their projects. And I made some suggestions. They did some improvements and saved them some money. How do I shorten that?
So if your target audience is business owners in the construction business, you can shorten it. And there's a lot of different ways. This is just one way to do it. I've been in your shoes. I've made the mistakes you're about to make. I will help you not make those mistakes, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not just business owners. I mean, I'm just trying to
Right.
get a job in project management or facility management, or even operations.
Sure.
I understand the operations
Sure.
sides very well. I'm not specifically
so
trying
what's-
to go in there and tell them how to do everything.
So
trying to help
project
them.
management and facilities and construction and all of that. I mean, what is the thing that sits on top of that allows you to be good at all of that? That's what you're shooting for.
I think it's my experience and the pitfalls I've seen over the years and watched, and I make sure those things are not repeated when I'm working on projects and things.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So you are really, you're very good at identifying and mitigating risk.
Yes, and also I saw things fall through the cracks working with other contractors,
Okay.
and I try to avoid those things.
Okay.
Something else you may want to consider, but I think you may be trying to get at but not getting to, is one of your strengths combining all of the ideas together?
Hmm. Go ahead.
Because I think the brand that you were starting to aim for is just talking about the risk, but I think you might be better served by talking about how you can use the knowledge of multiple fields and get things together to help consolidate the risk, as opposed to
Yes.
having the risk as the focus.
Yeah,
Right.
What-
I agree with that.
it's a good idea.
One of the things that's interesting is just the dynamic between what Sharon and Dave are doing is something that anybody could do. Is, Sharon's playing back who she was, who she is, and Dave is playing back to her some ideas. So partnering up with somebody and saying, having, tell me who you are, and then, okay, let me play it back in smaller words, and that cycle, I think, is productive.
Another way to do it is have people that that know your work tell you. Just say what makes me different. What stands out when you think about Sharon? What are the one or two things that just immediately pop out?
I had an old supervisor tell me I'm tenacious.
There you go. That's a good character trait to have.
I hope so, as long as people don't take it wrong.
Tenacity is a really good character trait when it's properly focused. It really is.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, if you want to meet a tenacious person, I just mentioned my boss, who is one of the sweetest women on the face of the earth, and she is also one of the most tenacious people I know, without a doubt. That's how she got me. Just interviewing with her, she just kept going after me. She was closing that whole time.
Like what?
So I was, I'd been an employer for 17 years, so it was very nerve-wracking to leave, and we had been working on this rebrand of our company and some new things with the website, and I'd written quite a bit of the content with our marketing people, and so I'd had a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this program, and I kept saying, we just launched it, and I don't want to leave right as we're about ready to turn things around, and she looked at me, I think 3 times. because I think I brought it up at least 3 or 4 times. She looked at me, and her term has helped me understand. Carol, has Denise ever said "help me understand" to you? Yeah. Help me understand how this new marketing program is going to change the things that you have said are the reasons for you to leave. And she said that to me at least 3 times, and now it's a joke. She says it. She still says that to me 2.5 years later.
She's unbelievable when she's in front of a client, and
She is.
Mastermind. She really is, in a very genuine way.
Hey, Dave,
Yes,
think you might get her to speak on one Monday night?
I could definitely get her to speak.
Good.
No
Just
question.
whatever topic she wants, just tell me the date and time, and I'll put it on the agenda.
I will. She's on vacation, I think later this week, but we can probably get her here in August or early September. Now I need to send myself a note to remind myself to do that.
She was in that link to that webinar you sent me, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, she was very good.
she's awesome.
Hey Dave, I got a question for you. Let's say that you have 3 different areas that are a little bit unique, but you like all 3. Would you recommend, let's say after you've built your online presence and you've kind of tried to identify what you're all about, and maybe you find a common theme that straddles all 3, do you recommend once you get your foot in the door that when you actually apply for that job, you're looking at a more catered resume that is highlighting on that specific skill set?
Yeah, absolutely. You anytime you apply for a job, you really need to diagnose what the customer wants. And sometimes all you have is a job description. Sometimes the decision maker, and sometimes you're somewhere in between those things. But anytime you're putting your resume up for a job, you want to tailor it to whatever you know about that job for sure.
Okay.
And you don't necessarily need, I told you this when we met, Dan, you don't necessarily need a real super duper resume to get a job offer if you've done a good job of branding. I never sent my resume to Adams Gabbert. They never asked for it. I never sent it. They hired me without it.
Yeah, that's what my experience so far. That the furthest along I've gotten is when I haven't even sent my resume.
Yep.
It's just the connections that you know.
Absolutely. And they really didn't know me that well. They just knew of me and called some people that I know that they know, and so they had some trusted, we call it backdoor references, but they had some trusted people that vouched for me. And there's plenty of information out there and in blogs and so forth. So it's not there's not much of a secret to Dave.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Dave tonight?
Dave, just a general one. If I think about a personal brand that I have versus what I'll call a professional brand, is there a way to integrate the two to create a single one, or is it okay to have separate brands?
I just think personal brand I think your professional brand is your personal brand. Our lives are so intertwined with who we are. Our identity is wrapped up in a lot in what we do professionally. So do you feel like you have 2 very distinct brands between your personal life and your professional life?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So outside of the professional world, I'm very artistic. The kind of that right side of my brain is strong in terms of music. I'm a vocalist, very people oriented, serving others in my church, for example. But the left side of my brain is where I bring into more of the professional world, very technically aligned, looking for opportunities to help customers succeed. There's parts of it maybe on the right side that I can bring in, but honestly, I feel that people recognize me depending on what setting I'm in, right? If I'm in a musical environment, they're going to see that. They're not going to see the technical parts of it when I'm performing. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think you're compartmentalizing something that really isn't in a compartment, because I'm the same way. If I didn't have my community job club banner up, you'd see a couple guitars hanging behind me, and I'm very artistic and very creative in those ways. And I think that translates into my professional life, because, and you too, I mean, you're in sales, there's an art to selling. And I think that being creative allows you to think on your feet better. It allows you to be more emotive to people and more sympathetic and empathetic with people. And I think that those are very, very important traits for good salespeople.
Okay, you mentioned a key word, so the creativity, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a common thread right there. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
Sure.
you know, kind of a tangential component to that, Jerry, is recognizing the things that we don't traditionally bring to the work environment that may be useful in the work environment. And a good example of that, and it revolves around innovation, is that Steve Jobs, one of his claim to fame with the first Mac was how creative his fonts were. His fonts, and that is a selection of fonts that were used on a Mac, blew away whatever Microsoft was doing at the time. And that probably wouldn't have come into play, except that years before, or months before, Steve Jobs took a class in calligraphy and really enjoyed calligraphy and really enjoyed it. So he took the creative elements of something and brought it back into the business. So I think bringing the creative aspects of who you are into the business, you're probably doing it already and don't even recognize it.
And if you're a musician, you know, I play by ear, and sometimes I have to improvise, and sometimes I get out of step with the rest of the band, and I got to find my way back. And those are all traits that translate into business all day long.
Yep, good points.
And those are things that people will remember too, because I don't think a lot of people talk about that.
And if you're wanting to head more towards the professional side using the creative side, I think there's actually a major opportunity within something like a vlog, where you can have more of the professional presentation towards your clients, but you can have the artistic side more towards what you present to the general audience.
Right. I want to learn to edit, because I have a hard time video editing. I've done vlogs, but they always end up being about a minute to a minute and a half, which is actually about the right length for one. And I ended up, it takes me an hour and a half to do them, because I record it, I screwed up, record it, I screwed up, listen to it, screwed up.
One of the best examples of somebody combining those two worlds is one of the space station, ISS, International Space Station astronauts, and you always think of them as being science. One of them a few years back did a music video from the space station. He had his guitar up there and did the whole music video, and I thought it was a great crossover type of thing.
That's cool.
Any other questions or comments? Anything else anybody else wants to talk about tonight?
I appreciate everybody being here for this. It's good to see some friendly faces. Good to see some new faces. I appreciate y'all joining.
Cool. You'll send out.
Thank you, Dave.
Just
That was good.
Can you post the presentation on our Slack site?